All right, let's dive in. Today, we're breaking down a really fascinating and honestly kind of startling thought experiment about the future of work. It's a model that tries to figure out what happens to the job market when AI and robots can basically do everything. Let's just jump right in.
So this is the whole game right here. The core prediction we're looking at is that the future labor force participation rate could plummet all the way down to just 10 or 15%. And to really get your head around how wild that is, we first need to understand what that rate even means.
Okay, so what is this labor force participation rate, or LFPR? It's pretty simple, actually. It's just the percentage of working-age people who either have a job or actively looking for one. To put that in perspective, right now in the US, it's sitting at around 62%. So just imagine a world where that number doesn't just dip a little, it completely falls off a cliff, down to 15%. We're talking about a future where 85% of working-age people are just not in the labor force anymore.
So how in the world does this model get to such a shocking number? Well, here's our roadmap. First, we're going to lay out the ground rules for this whole thought experiment. Then, we'll figure out which jobs actually survive, if any. After that, we'll explore this incredible idea called the attention bottleneck, run the final numbers, and then we'll ask the big question, what would life even be like?
All right, let's get into the rules of the game. For any of this to make sense, you've got to accept three really specific and, pretty bold assumptions. Think of these as the fundamental laws of this future world we're exploring.
Okay, rule number 1, total automation. This means a future where AI and robots are just flat out better than us at every single job that matters for the economy. Rule 2, we're going to assume society has figured out the money problem, something like universal basic income, so people still have cash to spend. And the last rule, and this is the big one, the only reason to hire a human is because they're human. The job itself has to require a real person for things like legal liability, genuine authenticity, or actual human care. Okay, so if we accept those rules, what work is actually left for us humans to do? The model starts from the bottom up, trying to find what it calls the irreducible core of human jobs.
Well, it basically breaks down into two main categories. On one side, you have the statutory core. These are jobs the law says have to be done by a human. Think about it, you need a CEO who can actually go to jail if things go wrong, or a licensed electrician who can personally be held responsible. Then you've got the authenticity premium. This is all the stuff where we want a human. We'll pay extra for it, whether it's an artist, a top athlete, or a therapist we can connect with.
Yeah, but here's the kicker. When you actually add all of that up, it's tiny, shockingly small. The jobs required by law make up maybe 2% of the workforce, max. Even when you throw in all the authenticity jobs, you're still looking at less than 10% of the entire economy, which leaves a whopping 90+% of all jobs today just vulnerable.
Now, I know what you're thinking. This is the big counterargument, right? If we're not working all the time, we're going to have way more free time. Surely that'll create tons of new jobs for people to provide services, right? Well, this is where the model gets really interesting and hits us with a major twist.
Yeah, let's tackle that question head on. If the average person goes from having maybe 5 hours of free time a day to something like 13 or 14, that's a massive change to how we live. You'd absolutely think that would create a huge explosion in demand for all kinds of human services and experiences, right?
And you know what? If you run the numbers on that happy, optimistic scenario, it actually looks pretty good at first. You could see millions of new jobs pop up in personal care, or people turning their hobbies into real businesses. You could see the labor force participation rate bounce back up to a much healthier, 23 to 40%. But, and it's a big but, this whole rosy picture is about to slam into a wall. A hard, unchangeable law of reality. To get why, we need to talk about something called Jevons Paradox. The basic idea is that when technology makes something way more efficient, we don't use less of it. We end up using way more. Just think about the internet, right? As it got way faster and more efficient, we didn't use it less. No way. We started streaming 4K movies and doing a million other things. The more efficient something gets, the more of it we use.
And this is the whole point. This is the linchpin of the entire argument. There is one and only one resource in the entire universe that is completely immune to Jevons Paradox: time. No matter how amazing our technology gets, we are all stuck with 24 hours in a day. You just can't make more time. So what does that mean? It means the entire economy flips on its head. For all of history, the economy has been limited by labor, not enough people to do the work. In this new world, the economy is limited by something else entirely: finite human attention. There are only so many hours in the day for all of us to consume everything.
So what does this attention economy really look like when you break it down? Well, it's super unequal. First, you've got the one-to-many people. Think of giant YouTubers or TikTok stars. It's a winner-take-all game where the top 1% grabs like a third of all the eyeballs. Then you have your one-to-few jobs, like a personal trainer, and one-to-one jobs, like a therapist. Those are super valuable, but they just don't scale. A therapist can only help one person at a time.
The analyses we're looking at sums it up with this absolutely killer line. When your success is based on grabbing a tiny slice of a fixed pie of attention, it stops being a predictable market for your labor. It just becomes a lottery.
Okay, so let's put all the pieces together and see what the final math looks like. Because when you apply that hard limit of attention, even the most hopeful scenarios start to shrink fast.
So this table shows you the different scenarios, from best to worst. Look at that top line, the ceiling. That's the absolute best case scenario we can imagine, and even then, we only get to a 20% participation rate. The worst case floor is a super low 5 to 7%. And you see how everything, the best case and the worst case, they all seem to get pulled back toward that middle number.
And that's how we land right back where we started. After all the math, after considering the optimistic case and the hard limits of reality, the model just keeps pointing back to this same narrow range. A future where only about 10 to 15% of us are actually in the labor force.
Okay, so let's just say this model is even kinda right. What would that world actually feel like to live in? This is where we move past the numbers and into something way more personal, a potential crisis of meaning for all of us.
I mean, think about it. For centuries, society has had a basic deal. There's too much work and not enough people, so we need your labor. This model flips that completely. It's a future of demand scarcity. There are too many people and not enough meaningful roles. Your labor becomes optional. That is a huge psychological shift.
So if your job isn't your purpose anymore, where do you find it? Maybe status isn't about being a vice president anymore, but about being an incredible chef or having amazing taste in music. Maybe real, meaningful activity, like art or volunteering, can finally be separated from the need to earn a paycheck. And maybe the most important new job is just being good at building communities and bringing people together. Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this whole thing. When AI can do pretty much any skill, what you can do matters way less than who you are to other people. Your real value is defined by your relationships, by your community, by your place in the web of human connection.
And that leaves us with a really big, kind of scary question to chew on. This whole exercise isn't really about predicting the future with certainty. It's about forcing us to ask, in a world where work is optional, how do you define your own worth?